Are you ready for a word from God that will give you direction? Are you ready to renew your mind and receive biblical answers to your secular problems? Are you ready, willing, and able to make a change for the better in your life? If you are, then listen to the Right Rev Rhino Show for mind-renewing, empowering, encouraging, and enriching biblical messages that will give you direction in making that change. The Right Rev Rhino takes everyday situations and puts biblical support to them. A gifted pastor and teacher, he has the ability to have your mind seeking more and more knowledge about God. AJ the Right Rev Rhino Watkins, Thursdays at noon at www.spreaker.com/user/Right Rev Rhino. Get it? Got it? Good. God bless the Right Rev Rhino.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, predicated on where you are on the planet today. This is your host, AJ the Right Rev Rhino Watkins. Once again, we are back. We are back after a lengthy sickness. Disease attacked my body, but we pulled on through. And so my listeners, I haven't been on in a minute because of the sickness and illnesses. So therefore, we're going to move most expeditiously into a text. I've noticed that some of my broadcasts have been taken down, I guess because of the fact that they were too old. But I thought for sure that we had been compensating our hosts to keep the broadcast up. So this broadcast will go once again so that it will be out there for those who have not heard it. I want to send out a shout out to Apostle John Ringo down in Louisiana, Bishop Kelly Zimmerman up in South Carolina, Spartanburg area. Yes, and send a shout out to my own flesh and blood son, Benjamin A. Watkins, and to all of those who prayed and talked to me on social media while I was going through the sickness. Thank you all so much for your concern. Thank you all so much for your prayers. They have been felt, and they have definitely helped in the healing process, not only physically, but mentally and spiritually as well. So, with that being said, we're going to talk today on the subject, it's how you handle it. It's how you handle it. And that will be coming from 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 8 through 9. That would be 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 8 through 9. It's how you handle it. You will read those scriptures at your leisure, for due to the sake of time, we must move on most expeditiously to get this message in. And many of you, as you well know, have had some serious challenges in life, and some of us right now are struggling in all areas of our life, from finances to the romance to education to employment to all of it. Governments are becoming more and more of a totalitarian system versus democracy. You have candidates and the powers that be who are doing their best to race bait and try to get an ethnic war going on between predominantly the black people and white people across this planet, so that they can institute their little version of martial law, so that people can be removed from the streets, so that they can claim the streets to do whatever it is that they want to do. That's not going to happen. So I want to say it like this. Be aware of when you're being race baited. If you ever take notice, before we get started with it, I'm talking about is how you handle it, but be aware of them. I'm trying to wake you up. You notice that every African American that was shot here in America, because I cannot talk for overseas. I cannot talk for my brothers and sisters overseas in the foreign countries in Europe and Africa, Australia, and the likes. I can't talk for you guys, but I do know here in America, I do know here, just here in America, the United States, that is, not just North American continent, because I'm not including Canada, because I don't know what's going on in Canada. I'm not including Mexico, Central America, or South America. I'm not including the Caribbean, because I do not know what's going on in all those areas, but I do know very well what's going on right here in the United States of America. And we have a very unique group of people call themselves running for the presidency of this country. Now, be it known, whether you like it or not, the president of the country has already been chosen. All of this stuff that's out in front of you is just a dog and pony show. Calling out each other on names, digging up the dirt. You know how politics go. They'll go all the way back to when you were born and come all the way forward. And anything that you might have done that you may not want anybody to know about, they're going to talk about it. They're going to launch it out. From explicit, sexy pictures you might have sent to somebody, and with somebody, share with someone, all the way up to whatever you have done. Maybe when the last time you went to the restroom. All of that's going to be, they'll use whatever they can to expose each other just in a dogfight to try to get recognition for the quote unquote most powerful position in the United States of America. Race baiting, what you don't know is that if you ever notice that most of the police officers that actually have been called out on shooting various African American men and women in the street and killing them, you ever notice they never did, a lot of them never did catch any jail time. They didn't even catch a trial. They just disappeared. That is because of the fact that they are not really real police officers. Yes, I said it. They're not really real police officers. They are operators that are operating as police officers, and then they will disappear into the crowd. You will never know their true name. You will never know anything about them because they are operators. And I'm not talking about operators that work with the phones and all of that kind of stuff. I'm talking about operators that actually do things in a clandestine way that many of you have no clue about unless you have been in the military and operating in the Special Forces division of any military. They're trying to get that done. What they don't tell you is that they have done that to more white men and white women, killing them, than they have to African American men and African American women. The statistics show that, as I just read that today, as a matter of fact. The statistics for the killing of white males and white females is way higher by about 200 more than they do black males and black females. And the thing is that if you've noticed, they don't advertise that on TV. They don't report that on the news stations. But they report when you have a white cop hurting African Americans, or if you have an African American cop hurting white Americans in a shootout. They're trying to get it started so that they can do some other things. Right now, America is too free-minded. We're too free-willed. And if they ever institute martial law, for those of you that do have weapons and they're not registered, they will try to come and take your weapons from you. That's why the NRA and those that have the right to bear, and the Constitution where we have the right to bear arms, are fighting very desperately and fighting hard to keep people out of your house, because that's what martial law is. Being able to come to your house whenever they have any suspicion that you're doing something wrong. You could be in the house having a good time with your mate and doing some things, and they can just come right through the door. And because you don't have any weapons to fight back, they can just come in. They don't have to say search warrant. They don't have to announce themselves or anything like that. Study what martial law is, and you will quickly learn that it is not in your favor, America. It is not in your favor. With that being said, we're going to move most expeditiously now to the message of it's how you handle it. And this is what I'm talking about. It's how we handle it here in America that keeps the powers that be pretty much coming up with new ideas to try to do something. Let me give you an idea. Ebola. Ebola was not a new disease that came out last year in 2015. It was not, or 2014. Ebola was out back in 1999 to 2002. After 9/11 and after the attacks on this country in New York City, Ebola was out before then. Ebola is a man-made virus. It is not something that you catch. They say, well, you can catch it over here and catch it. Yeah, you can catch something once you plant it into the country and then have it come out. And then you can blame that country for having it. But no. Ebola was out long before I even got out of the military, brothers and sisters. Long before I even got out, I had heard about Ebola. So don't let them Do your research. Do not trust the media to tell you anything because they have been sanitized. They report what they're told to report by people that are much greater than you and I. So do your research. Get on the internet. Do your research. Go to news sites that are not regulated under the FCC and all of that. What you can and can't broadcast. Get on those sites. You might see some things that is not going to be palatable for you. It might even turn your stomach. But when you watch and look at them, you will notice that you'll say, well, they're not broadcasting that. Of course they're not broadcasting that. They're not going to broadcast that because they don't want you to know the real truth. But the truth of the matter is that there's a lot more going on than watching your local news. It's good to know what's going on in your city, but if you really want to know something, go to the local internet that's around your city, that's in your local region. Those are freelance bloggers. They will tell you exactly what's going on without any hesitation or reservation. So with that being said, let us look at it's how you handle it. 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 8 through 9. Life can sometimes be extremely challenging, my brothers and sisters. We are usually the catalyst for our troubles because we have a proclivity to want to succeed at any cost, and we gravitate toward those who look the part but are not what you see on the outside. Many saved and unsaved folk alike will often gravitate towards anyone who possesses pulchritudinal splendor and possessions. People who come in and out of our lives bring either positive or negative energy. They bring either encouragement or discouragement, or they bring good or bad spirits. People come to you with all kinds of ulterior motives, and we sometimes get caught off guard and find ourselves backpedaling in an effort to reset our footing so that we can fight back. Satan is the master of tricks and deception. Whether we want to face it or not, there are people from the pulpit to the last pew in any ministry who allow Satan to use them to cause chaos and confusion in the lives of the saints and in the lives of each other. You don't have to worry about his antics if you handle it properly. It's how you handle it. Understand that. It is how you handle it. I've had some people in my life. I've gone to help people. And I've come out with all kind of stains on my character because I went to help, and in the middle of helping them, they got upset, got mad about something or whatever, and went high and to the right. Let me tell you something. You're going to have people that'll do that to you. And when they do that, you just forgive them and keep it pushing. You're going to have people that's going to do that, but you don't have to sit and take the foolishness over and over and over again. If it happens once, maybe twice, the third time is not a mistake. That's just who they are. And if you don't like that, it is your choice as a grown man or a grown woman to either stick around and tell them about it or move on. But if you tell them about it and they still do it, that means they do not respect you. So when a person loses respect for you, they're not going to hear you anyway, no matter what you say, no matter how well you talk to them, or whatever the case may be. But they want to scream and holler and you don't. But they're going to try to do whatever they can to get you to scream and holler. Don't even waste your time. Pack your trash and move on. That's all there is to it. It's how you handle it. Because down the road and around the corner, they will realize that, you know what, I really didn't have to do all of that. I really didn't have to say all that. What I should have done was this, and this. But by that time, oftentimes, for many people, it's too little, too late. It's too little, too late. So you have to move on. Forgive them. Because the forgiveness is for you so that you can go on. No matter what they call you, no matter what they say about you, no matter what you do and how you help them, you have helped them and move on. Just think about what Jesus did. Jesus helped many, and many of them didn't even come back and say thank you, and many of them was ungrateful, and many of them even talked about him behind his back after he had moved through the region. So if Jesus suffered it, you can suffer it too, and just keep moving. In our text, we find Peter telling us to be sober and vigilant because the enemy is looking to wreak havoc in your life. The text speaks on sobriety and vigilance. Vigilance meaning watchfulness. Sobriety and watchfulness is necessary and useful in the Christian's life, and one cannot exist without the other. Unless a man or woman is sober in body and mind, he or she will not be watchful over themselves or others that are placed in their responsibility. They will not be aware of the snares of Satan and the world. If they are not on their watch and guard, they are liable to every temptation. The Syriac version renders the words watch and be ye mindful, or remember, watch with diligence, care, and industry, keeping a good lookout, minding and observing everything that occurs, and remembering the power and the cunning of the enemy. Don't give Satan too much leeway, because he's more powerful than you give him credit for. You'll fool around and find yourself drawn into somebody's argument, drawn into it so they can argue with you and do all this craziness. Don't go for it. Back out of it, turn around and walk off. Cool off and then come back. If they still want to talk about it, they do. If they don't, then don't worry about it. The Ethiopic version renders the words as saying, "Be ye steadfast and cause your heart to understand," referring them not to temperance of body, but sobriety of mind, and to a prudent conduct and behavior, as having a subtle as well as a malicious enemy to deal with. That means watch out for him. It's how you handle it. If you are not watching your life closely, brothers and sisters, you can find yourself in a very uncompromising position. You'll find yourself in a very uncompromising position. And now I'm not talking about when you hook up with people and you got good relationships going and things are going lovely. It's just all of a sudden when somebody just turn on you. Now you're in an uncompromising position because you're trying to figure out where is all this anger and hatred coming from now. You just got through having dinner. Now you just had a good time at the theater. You just went out on a night on the town. And now all of a sudden, and nothing went wrong. Everybody was on their best behavior. Everybody was lovely. We all loved and had a good time and went out and showed love to one another. Then all of a sudden, you flipped the script and started acting a fool. Just going in, raising Cain for no reason. That's what I meant by you trying to catch your footing and get yourself together, because you can fight back. The way you fight back oftentimes is not to say a word, but let them get everything out that they need to get out. Once they get it out, then walk off. Because you really don't have to respond to a lot of negative energy. Satan, the enemy, is the one who is a defamer and calumniator. He accuses God to men, and he accuses men to God, and is therefore styled the accuser of the brethren. He is the saints' avowed and implacable enemy. Satan is an enemy to mankind in general, but more especially to the seed of the woman, to Christ personal, and to Christ mystical, to all of the elect of God. He has no favorites. So you must know how to handle him. Some folks break down and cry while others attempt suicide, while yet others attempt to just quit and go back to the world. It's how you handle it. Contrary to popular teachings and beliefs, Satan is not weak at all. If you do not have faith in God and a strong belief in your heart to follow Jesus, my brothers and sisters, Satan will tear your world apart. The text states as a roaring lion. He is so called because of his strength and also because of his rage, malice, and cruelty, which he breathes out against the saints, who, though he cannot destroy them, will do all he can to terrify and frighten them. He is walking to and fro, looking for signs of weakness and fear, so he may devour you. Just like a lion runs about here and there when it is hungry, Satan is on his job, and he is willing to do whatever it takes to make you miss the mark of your goals. Satan is also on his job, and he is utilizing the insidious methods, wiles, and stratagems to surprise men and women and take advantage of them. He takes our tour and comes around behind us. Yeah, he'll tour with you and then turn around and come around behind you and see if he can walk up behind you and tear your life apart. So it is imperative that they are always sober and on guard. It's how you handle the enemy during your most critical spiritual battles that will make you a better representative of God. Not only your spiritual battles, but your mental battles as well, because when somebody's all up on you and everything like that, you can actually get pretty upset, and you can also find yourself mentally drained. So when we look at verse 9, we find that we can handle the enemy. We are not supposed to give him any type of leeway by indulging or yielding to any temptation, but oppose him and stand against his wiles, his cunning, and his power. How do we do that? Peter tells us by being steadfast in the faith. You can handle the enemy two ways: in the faith, and that is in the doctrines of faith, which Satan endeavors to remove from us or cause us to stagger in, and in an exercise in the faith. You can handle him two ways. That is, in the doctrine of faith and in the exercising of the faith, while standing on the promises of God. God's power, God's faithfulness toward us when we put our faith in him through the blessed blood of Christ. Faith is capable of making use of the blood of Jesus and utilizing it as a shield against all the fiery darts of Satan. Our profession of faith should be held fast without wavering. The devil is very busy trying to keep people from constructing a foundation of faith. If he cannot do that, then he attempts to make them step off of their faith when they have made it by utilizing violent suggestions and strong temptations and a flood of reproaches and persecutions, all of which should be disregarded if you have faith in God. It depends on how you handle your trials and tribulations. You can attempt to handle them on your own without God, which means you may or may not win. Or you can choose to exercise your faith in God and turn all of the tricks and temptations over to God and let God fight your battles. Your faith is the key to you handling the enemy and his antics. In our 21st century churches, you have people who are being utilized by the enemy to thwart programs, impede the progress of a ministry, and stunt the spiritual growth of people in the ministry. Sometimes they know exactly what they are doing by sneaking around playing foolish games. Games of control and games of position are the primary games that they play in churches. Then there are times the enemy is using people and they don't even realize they are being puppeted by the enemy. Many innocent folks get hurt because so many people have a form of godliness at first glance, but they lack the power thereof. So they don't know how to truly handle such treatment. Peter tells us to be steadfast in the faith. Faith in its most simplistic meaning is total trust in God. If your faith is tried by the enemy and you fail, then you need to exercise your faith. In Luke 22, chapter 22, verses 31 through 22, forgive me, you guys. Forgive me. I got the text right in front of me. I'm getting ready to read it. In Luke chapter 22, verses 31 through 32, Jesus told this to Peter. And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for thee, that thy faith fail not, and when thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren. Peter is here in our text in this modern day era trying to strengthen us by telling us to be steadfast in our faith. Well, if Jesus prayed for Peter and he is eternal, that prayer covers us too. We are just reminded that we need to use our faith to handle all situations that life deals us, whether they are smooth or rough. Luke tells us that Jesus has prayed that our faith fails not. That means you are going to be tried and you are not going to have it easy. But if your faith is in Jesus, you will not fail. You might bend, but you won't break, and you won't fail. Most of us deplore troubles and trials. We would rather live without facing adversities and setbacks. We come to church and we hope certain folks will leave us alone. We don't care for times of sickness or distress. I can vouch for that. Our faith, in order to become effective, must be tested and tried, and the enemy is good at it. As a matter of fact, faith is not really faith until it has been proven to be so. All too often we have a proclivity to depend upon our own knowledge, our own financial resources, our own physical strength, and even our own previous experiences. This is not the kind of faith that God wants and that Jesus prayed about, that he said would not fail. That's not the faith that they're talking about. Faith is the ability to trust God to do for us what we cannot do for ourselves. Prime examples of this type of faith are found all over the Bible. Abraham's faith was tried and tested as he set out looking for a city not made by man. Noah's faith was tried and tested as he labored for years constructing the ark. Moses' faith was tried and tested as he led God's people out of the Egyptian bondage. Joshua's faith was tried and tested as he marched around the walls of Jericho. Daniel's faith was tried and tested as he spent a night in the lion's den. The three Hebrew boys' faith was tried and tested as they took a Sunday stroll in the fiery furnace. Nehemiah's faith was tried and tested as he labored to rebuild the fallen walls of Jerusalem. Jacob's faith was tried and tested when he returned home to meet Esau, who had deceived years before and got the birthright of his brother. John's faith was tried and tested, having been isolated on the Isle of Patmos. The 120's faith was tried and tested as they awaited the outpouring of the Holy Ghost in the upper room. Joseph's faith was tried and tested when he was sold into the Egyptian bondage. The disciples' faith was tried and tested when they were out on the stormy sea. We are no different. The enemy has permissions to try our faith, so it is how you handle the test that determines if your faith will stand the test. As a matter of fact, every time your burden gets heavy, your faith will be tested. Every time the mountain seems too high, your faith will be tested. Every time the road becomes rough, your faith will be tested. Every time you have difficulties on your job, your faith will be tested. Every time your body is racked with some sort of strange pain, your faith will be tested. Every time your friends let you down, your faith will be tested. Every time your finances get tight, your faith will be tested. It depends on how you handle it that determines the result of the test. The testing will prove whether your faith is strong or weak, mature or immature, solid or shaky, if it has depth or if it is shallow. The test will prove whether your faith is developing or dying, genuine or inferior, and it will prove whether your faith is founded on the Word of God or just on pure emotions. Examine yourself and figure out how you respond when your faith is tested. How do you respond when Satan is attacking you? Do you accept it as a challenge to prove your faith's strength and maturity? Do you accept it as one of God's methods of preparing you for future events? Do you accept it as an opportunity to prove that Satan is a liar? Do you accept it as God helping you to become all that you can be and should become? Do you accept it, the attack, that is, as a confirmation that God really cares about you? Those whom God loves, he chastises. Do you accept the attacks as a time you can prove the validity of God's precious promises to you? It all depends on how you handle it. If you cannot handle it, or you feel your faith is inadequate, then do like the apostles in Luke chapter 17, verse 5, and ask the Lord to increase your faith. Don't stop there. Ask God to increase your knowledge, increase your understanding, increase your wisdom, increase your patience. It's how you handle it that will make the difference in your Christian character. Your faith will not fail if you exercise it right, because Jesus has already prayed that it wouldn't. May God bless you. May God keep you. This is an early week message because of the fact that I have been out of pocket. And let your faith grow. Do not put your faith in humanity, because if you go to church and you get church hurt, and you leave the church and don't go and unite with another ministry where they might have it going on, that means that your faith was never in God in the first place. Your faith was in humanity, because man will hurt you. If you suffer from church hurt and the pastor at the ministry that you're in does not want to help you, does not want to do nothing for you, doesn't want to even try to do anything about it or something like that, go on to the next ministry. Just move on. Don't burn the bridge. Just say, hey, I need to move on because I feel that I have outgrown this ministry, and let your faith walk take you to where you need to be so that you can continue to grow spiritually, psychologically, and mentally, so that you can move on and achieve the goals that God has assigned for you and impregnated you with. All the best, and God bless. And we will talk to you next time. Bye-bye now.
A.J. the Right Rev Rhino Watkins, pastor of Simonton Genesis Ministries Incorporated, where the mantra is revelation, reconciliation, and restoration.